Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of VCTV. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott, and today we're talking about one of my personal favorite subjects and our favorite subjects here at VCTV, and that is blockchain. We want to talk about everything that's happening in blockchain, but today in particular, we're looking at transformative or emerging markets and what specifically blockchain is doing in those regions around the world and how it's helping to transform them into this next digital decade that we're looking ahead of us as well. And as we do on these particular episodes, I'd like to read the headlines so you get a little bit of context as to what's happening as this industry continues to move very aggressively on a millisecond basis versus a day-to-day basis. We mentioned earlier on today on VCTV the number of total lock value or TLV around decentralized finance projects has now surpassed 28 billion with a capital B dollars, again in TLV, total lock value. If we look back to May of last year, less than a year ago, we had just crossed over 1 billion. Come full circle, here we are in February of 2021. We've now crossed over 28, headed towards $30 billion in total locked value around decentralized finance projects. And as we mentioned in our previous episode of VCTV, a lot of that activity is also focused around those transformative markets as well. And we'll come back to that in just a moment. Also in the headlines, Mark Cuban came out and made a great statement and also a great article around the store of value generation and how the upcoming generation is looking at the digital world and digital goods, and particularly excitement around NFTs and blockchain as the future that they will hold, and something we all need to be paying attention to. We also had Ray Dalio come out earlier in the week as well and share his thoughts around Bitcoin along with his team's analysis on the digital currency itself. We also have Signal, the private messaging app, coming out and talking that they are experimenting, with Stellar, and we're seeing where that may go. We also have Reddit partnering with the Ethereum Foundation to focus around scaling their resources, and Japan. This is very interesting for today's discussion. Japan has now announced that they will be launching a blockchain-based stock exchange in the second half of 2022, so in about a year from now, allowing investors to trade digital securities using blockchain technology. This and so much more we're going to be speaking about, again, looking at how blockchain is being applied in transformative or emerging markets. But before we do, a big thank you to tuning in. We appreciate you as our audience joining in every day, all day around the world from VCTV. And we have some special guests that we brought on board today, as we do every episode, the best and the brightest around the world as investors, to share their on-the-ground perspective around today's technology, again, blockchain. And we'll be talking about those transformative emerging markets more importantly today. And if you'd like to be on a show like today as an investor or as an entrepreneur to share your company, product, or service, reach out to the team and or myself, and we'll find the right spot for you. Speaking of that team, a big thank you to the LATOKEN team and to Maria, who make VCTV possible every single day, all day, from around the world. We couldn't do it without them. They bring us together so that we can educate you on everything that's happening around these different technologies, industries, and regions around the world. With that, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. Let's go ahead and jump in and introduce each of our investors today before we jump into today's topic. Adrian, welcome back to the show. A quick introduction and background for everybody. All right, Adrian, we'll come back to you here in just a moment, having some technical difficulties, no worry. Irfan, welcome back to the show. I'll let you kick it off for us, a little intro, a little background.
Thank you, Kyle, and thank you to the LATOKEN team for organizing this fantastic program, and thanks to the audience for tuning in. My name is Irfan. I'm the Managing Director of Irfan Holdings. I have been an active investor in the emerging market for over a decade now, and very interested to talk about this very near and dear topic. And I see that Kyle is evangelizing the term, transformative economy, and I love it. The fact that I always see these kind of economies to have transformational impact in the global economy. Back to you, Kyle.
Thank you, Irfan, and thank you for passing on that terminology and educating me as well on how important it is that we look at them, look at regions around the world as transformative markets or economies rather than just emerging as well. So again, appreciate that education. And next up, Noble, welcome back to the show. A little intro and a little background, please.
Hi, everybody. My name is Noble Dracone. I'm the author of the books Winning the Trading Game and Trade Like a Pro. I'm also the managing partner of Dracone Capital Partners and the CEO of a mobile app development company that focuses on NFTs and augmented reality called Where Play Games. I'm happy to kind of always be involved in this space. I have been for almost 20 years when it comes to investing and trading, and on and off since the inception of blockchain. And so it's really exciting to see the mass adoption. Our world is going to look completely different in a decade from now. Just as cell phones transform the world, blockchain is on the process of doing that as well. So I look forward to our talk today.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Noble, there's a lot to talk about specifically around the NFT space, as you mentioned, in those transformative economies, as we look at this digital economy that less than a year ago was predicted at $100 billion. Now we're looking well past those numbers as it continues to really evolve over the past few months and looking ahead as 2021 and gaming starts to take shape. So I know you've got a lot more to share on that. But before we do, Wendy, welcome back to the show. It's always a pleasure. A little intro and a little background for everybody.
Thank you. I'm in the snowstorm right now. So as you see, I'm like my whole thing. So thank you. So I'm, again, such a supporter of what's happening in the world with emerging markets, because it's now the time, as we know, with Bitcoin being the most important financial instrument, to basically deflationary financial instrument is going to enable everyone in the world financial access. So I think this is one of the most important things that we can all recognize right now and see what's happening in the world. As you've seen right now, I'm in the middle of like New Jersey at a ski resort, and it's like crazy. I went into an ATM and I saw on this ATM in this hotel in the middle of like Jersey, like no one here, and literally they had Bitcoin. You could get Bitcoin out. And I thought to myself, my God, if it's happening in this little town, this is revolutionizing the world. And knowing what's going on in Africa and India, and excited as I mentioned, I'm a partner in 3 funds, a limited partner in those 3 funds, and I work on all the impactful initiatives for these 3 funds and bring those companies to these funds. And I'm just really excited about what's happening in the world and what's happening for everybody in this world that are a part of these emerging markets. Thank you again, LA Token, for having me here.
Thank you, Wendy, as well. I'm glad you're bundled up and warm. I'm glad you're bundled up and warm in that middle of that crazy snowstorm that you guys are experiencing on the East Coast. But happy to have all of you here today, again, to dive deeper into blockchain, more particularly around these transformative economies and markets. And Irfan, I'm going to throw it over to you to kick us off as to kind of what you're seeing happening. We talked a little bit previously around India and some of the activities that India is or actually taking a step back on. But more importantly, as we look at the world as a whole, how are you seeing blockchain applied towards transformative marketplaces and also economies as a whole?
Great. No, thank you, Kyle, for giving me the torch again. And I want to pick up on one particular information that you just mentioned, which is that a lot of the studies have shown that this market had the potential of a few hundreds of billions of dollars worth of opportunity, but we're seeing results to far exceed that number. In fact, in my personal research, I've actually said that this is over like $2 trillion opportunity. And this is coming out to be true. And the reason that we are, there's a little bit of a gap of information when we try to understand transformative economy. And I think it goes back to, again, the state of some of these economies, right? So one aspect is the technology infrastructure. And the technology infrastructure plays a big part is because still a large part of the activities and some businesses in those economies are still offline as we speak, which means that we still haven't been able to retrieve data from these countries, these economies, these regions in a lot of aspects. And the data that we have been able to recover from time to time in a lot of ways have been compromised. And anyone who has worked into specifically acquiring data in these transformative economies know the challenges and some of the prerequisite default that we take into consideration before we take those data. So I think why I emphasize on the data is because real data or close to real data gives us a huge amount of opportunity to work in this area. And why this relates back to blockchain is because in a place where you do not have structured infrastructure or systems, because A, it is too expensive, B, it hasn't existed through the traditional systems for a long time. So when blockchain infrastructures are deployed over here, you're able to retrieve this data. And once you're able to retrieve this data, you can then understand and see sort of like a bird's eye view of some of the areas that you could penetrate. I think, it was a common understanding for a lot of the people who were on the ground that there's so much more opportunity. But because of a lot of the complexities around the transformative economy, specifically around governance and execution, has always kept a large number of projects, investors away. But today, I see this would change significantly. But would love to go further deeper. But happy to hear what the rest of the panelists have to say. And back to you, Kyle.
Thank you, Irfan. I do want to go deeper in just a moment. We'll get to Noble and Wendy's perspective as well. And Wendy, I want to throw it over to you next. Kind of what you're seeing in this realm as you do a lot of impact investing. You also are an LP in many funds focused around blockchain. You do a lot of in blockchain, and you look at these transformative economies. What have you seen really taking place in those, and maybe what's getting you excited for the year ahead?
Well, first of all, I think it's like the best time ever, when you think about the world today, right? And you think about like these entrepreneurs that are coming up and disrupting the world. And, as you know, I'm, very involved in a few companies that are really doing incredible things, and go back to Irfan about trillion-dollar companies, or trillion-dollar initiatives. When you think about like agriculture, it's a $4 trillion market, right? That needs to be disrupted. Farmers are literally, these farmers that are doing all the work, harvesting these products and the whole thing, are getting very little money. And what I see now happening is this whole world literally transpiring, because like we have this program in India in the state of Andhra Pradesh where these people might have been getting like $1 for their harvest, right? And have 1 hectare of land. And now what we're seeing is that, with the ability of blockchain and being able to show the supply chain and understand all that and cut out the middle people, these farmers now with these initiatives are getting double the money. And now like companies like IBM need to work with these groups and these companies because people want to know exactly where does this food come from. And so when you're thinking about supply chain and you're thinking about this whole world, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm like just super excited because I've seen, and I have so many companies that are coming to me and they're showing me all the stuff that they're doing. And you're like, wow, because, with Hyperledger, these are just like add-ons that are bringing true traceability and true understanding. So we're going to be seeing this with all the supply chain markets, whether it's going to be for energy, whether it's going to be for food, everything. And I think this is going to be the most important time in history because, blockchain is new, right? Think about it. I mean, MIT in the last 10 years just started teaching this stuff, right? But a lot of, universities around the world have not. And what we're going to see now is so much advancement, especially in countries like India and all of Africa and in Asia. You're seeing just growth in every way, right? So, and especially like the Chinese government who are now investing so much money in infrastructure in this blockchain space and in all the different markets there, and really open to collaborations, et cetera, and investing. Like, 2 of my companies I know have just gotten $1 million grants from China that are both in the blockchain space. And so, we're looking at real, major transitions happening in the next year. And look what happened right now with Gemini today, just announced, they're going to be giving 7.5%, interest on about, I think it was 26 crypto holdings. So think about that and think about the financial aspects of the world today, right? Like, who would not want to go and put their money into Gemini and get that extra interest rate if they have any crypto holdings, right? So I think what we're seeing here is a whole transition of the whole industry. I think right now blockchain is probably the most, as we know, the most important, tool that has come out that we are going to see like so much help for these emerging markets, and governments are now accepting it. Governments are now launching their own coins. So this is a super exciting time.
Well, yeah, and you, Wendy, thank you. Great point. And you pulled out Asia, Africa. I mean, we've also got Latin America. There's so many of these transformative economies that are just thriving, looking at this technology and implementing it from a currency side. So either a central bank digital currency or just, again, a digital currency in some way, and offering it as a method of payment. So a lot more to be had there. And Noble, I want to switch over to you. Anything to add on to Wendy's point? But then I want to hear about gaming and what you see around gaming as well.
Yeah, you know, we deal with people in both Africa and Asia, and a lot of people are starting to look at this more and more so, not only as a currency, but as a way to make a living, right? There's so many different ways in these particular tokens to be a proof, be the proof of stake or be the proof holder in order for the items to be spit back out or to be curated. And so people are really starting to look at this as an income source in a big way. And, you know, let's be sincere, you know, Bitcoin is super hardware intensive, and has been since the beginning. And as it starts to diminish, it becomes more and more hardware intensive. So a lot of the up and coming blockchains and DLTs are now focusing more on a lot of proof of work and the ability to not have to have so much in resources, physical resources, but human capital in order to curate and push it forward. You know, that Stellar, Lumens, all these guys are really just changing and transforming the world. You look at what Akon is doing in Africa. He built a whole entire A-coin on the piggybacking on Stellar, and they're using it already now as different forms of payment because the majority of Africa is unbanked. You know, it's impossible to really send money from internally from one country to the other nearly. But, you know, prior to crypto and blockchain, they were using cell phone minutes. And so it's now become a real high transformative event that now everything's on a level playing field. And when it comes to gaming, you know, let's be sincere. More hours, more time is spent in casual gaming than ever before. We talk about, you know, $100 billion crypto economy, but you know, gaming has broke several hundred billion this year alone because of the pandemic. And so when you start seeing a convergence of these two areas, then it becomes an explosive opportunity for people to not just be esports gamers, but casual gamers. I really believe that casual gaming is the new gig economy. You know, you're going to play games, you're going to earn crypto of some sort, you're going to be a part of the nodes, and you're going to, you know, have governance tokens and vote on different games and how games evolve, and you're going to earn income. And you know, we just saw, and I'm not sure if the audience follows it, but Flow just released. It's a new or third opportunity for NFTs to come out, but it's actually solved a lot of the problems that Ethereum had. It solved the problems that EOS has, and now it has its own infrastructure for both NFTs, currency development, that's made it easier for wallets to function and operate. When they started out, they debuted at 10 cents. They went out to the marketplace on the exchanges. They're at $12. It's pulled back a little bit since then, but you know, and that was created by the same people who created CryptoKitties, because they saw what the resistance was on CryptoKitties trying to do it on Ethereum and how the gas fees blew up. So they went back to the drawing board and created their whole entire own infrastructure that now people are building NFTs on, non-fungible tokens. And so the non-fungible token space across the board is getting more and more engaged. It's great to have a cryptocurrency, but you know, we look at it on one level as currency that can be traded and swapped and manipulated, but there's also technology behind it. Bitcoin from the beginning was just a super, you know, let's be frank, it's almost analog to today's digital operations when it comes to blockchain. You know, you had Bitcoin, you could only do one thing, transfer ones and zeros to each other. You had Ethereum, which now allowed the contract to talk. Then you have EOS, which we're a big fan of. And we've staked a lot of our interest in Wax and EOS, which has no gas fees because the CPU and RAM are passed on. And now you have Flow. And this is kind of the evolution in the distributed ledger technology that people have to pay attention to, not just whether or not you have a coin or a token, but what is the utility of that token. And I believe that's where the explosive growth happens, where people can now realize that these contracts have activity. And, come on, this response to, Japan's response to what happened with GameStop and Amazon and the 3-day clearance rule. I've been in trading for, 28 years. With Robinhood slowing down people not buying stock, and they said because of clearinghouse issues, other people believe other political reasons, this is a specific backlash to that, because if it's on the blockchain, then clearing happens immediately. So there's so many mini transformative ways that DLT has that it's not going to be a $1 trillion industry. It's going to be the backbone. It's going to be far greater than trillions of dollars. It will be the new payment method over the next decade in all forms. And so
Noble, I apologize. I love the points. No, it's okay. Wendy wants to comment in, so I want to make sure.
You got me going, Kyle.
Yeah. I didn't want to stop you. I apologize. But I want to make sure everyone else gets a chance to chime in. Wendy, you have a few comments you wanted to add at this point.
Yeah, totally. No, I'm so with you on this, because if you think about it, gaming is one of the perfect things for blockchain, but also what that is doing for education. I mean, if we don't figure out ways for people to be learning, online, especially, right? It's who wants to sit in a thing? So they're gamifying education as well is so important. And when you see about emerging markets who are able to have courses and be able to see everything, it's exploding, where all these people in Nigeria and Mongolia and etc. and all these emerging markets are really having an opportunity to learn through some of the greatest institutions in the world, right? And by using blockchain and gamifying it and making it really easy and traceable and transparent and etc. and being able to note what these people are able to do and learn and grow, I think is one of the most important things in gamification of education and about enabling everyone to learn.
Two last points, Kyle. We just finished something called the Entrepreneur Game, which has been accepted in the schools. We're talking about putting blockchain to it. We've got King of Quotes game, which is a game that my partner and I developed 2 years ago. It was a board game. We just converted it all over to NFT and blockchain, and it's being taken into Africa by different gaming companies because they love political quote games. So it's 100% right, Wendy, that this is all part of the ecosystem, and so it's not going to be just one thing. It's fully transformative across the board, and we have no idea how this is going to fit in, especially when you get into quantum computing, right? Kyle?
Right. Absolutely. Adrian, I want to come over to you to make sure you get some time in here as well. Anything to add on to Noble and Wendy's points around gaming and the power of gaming in these transformative markets? But in general, you focus a lot of your efforts there. Anything to add as to what's happening and what has been happening over really the last couple of months?
First, we could speak about that for 7 weeks, and we just scratched the surface. And especially in the unbanked countries, I believe that the adoption will be pretty fast and profound. And I can use as an example, Romania, my country. We are in the top 10 for the speed of the internet because it wasn't an infrastructure there, and everything which was new penetrated the market. So in the most developed countries, the transition from the classical banking to the neo-banking to the blockchain-based banking and all the advantages of this industry, it will be a little bit slower because it's still a huge resistance from the classical players. But in the countries where the banking infrastructure doesn't exist, this will be the way of doing things, and it will become the second nature, which is very, very exciting.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Irfan, anything to add on this? I mean, it sounds like the conversation of gaming really is going to create an opportunity for income for many around the world. And we've seen this with the virtual economy and a lot of the discussion around it as well. And we're seeing that more around just how the NFT space and so non-fungible tokens for those first tuning in, and also just in general how Web3 and the future of distributed applications may play a role that as well.
Yeah, no, great point, Kyle, and also great points made by the fellow panelists, Wendy, as well as Noble and Adrian. But that said, and I I see that further utilization of the technology in the gaming industry, and that's because the gaming industry has always been at the foremost front of utilizing some of the assets and the services that we know today. In fact, some of the early application of some of the blockchain products were always in the gaming industry, so which is fantastic. I just wanted to add a little bit more context into the topic that we are discussing today, and wanted to take a dive into that, which is essentially, and I believe Wendy mentioned that, is that the opportunity specifically in the supply chain side, right? So how applying the blockchain technology in the supply chain side, specifically in the transformative markets, and this is massive, So I've written and published a report actually around the application of blockchain in the agricultural industry. Agriculture has for a long time has been the bread and butter for some of this transformative economy. And again, it is essential that particular sector of the economy keeps growing, because at the end of the day, the world's population is growing, and we need food security, and every country would need those food security. And besides food, agriculture plays an important part in a lot of other sectors of our industry. So that said, one of the major problems that these industries were facing and is a funding, number one. Number two is that how they are able to prove that their products are not contaminated, and three, there has been major corruptions in the middleman side of the scenario, where multiple actors are playing part, which makes accessing this product, distributing this product become very difficult. So blockchain essentially has the opportunity to create a lot of significant positive scenarios in this situation. So as an example, there's a company that I've been working with for some time, and it's a company which has also been part of the what's it called, the Coinbase's incubator. And so what they do is they try to provide agro financing by utilizing both blockchain data as well as satellite information. So what they're trying to do is that this has been a major problem, specifically deploying agro financing to specific region, because you needed a lot of ground people to be involved and a lot of processes to be involved before they could be activated, and the risk factor were always pretty high. Today, those data is serving to sort of automate some of the financing processes, as well as provide real-time data to some of the financial providers to either decrease or increase the potential funding to these farmers, as well as agricultural projects in transformative economies. So I just wanted to bring that in front. So there are multiple areas. So back to you, Kyle.
Yeah, so on that last point, thank you, Irfan. Noble and Wendy, I want to come to you both on this. I know you both have done a little bit in this space. I mean, as we look at the agriculture side of blockchain being implemented in transformative economies, have you seen anything, or do you see this as a potential opportunity as well, or any other opportunities that you may be seeing looking at the year ahead that people should be building or investing in around those, again, transformative economies? And Wendy, we'll start with you around this.
Yeah, so I think, when you look at what's happening around the world, and especially, in these economies, especially for farmers, I mean, this is one of the greatest movements in history that's happening. And one of the companies that I'm invested in, Producers Market, has already dedicated 20% of their company for the farmers. And, BNP Paribas, one of the biggest banks in the world, have already invested, I think it's like $300 million into this project in India. And so when you see this, and it's 6 million farmers that they've already started onboarding on a producer's market, putting them onto the platform, which is enabling them the traceability and everything through the blockchain and so forth. They've also just announced that the government of India is also now going to bring this to Gujarat. So what you're seeing is like, this one country being a pioneer in really supporting farmers in this initiative. They've also, and this has been a partnership with the United Nations Environmental Program. And so they've also now announced the same thing that they're going to be doing for all the Caribbean countries. So, behind the scenes, there's a lot happening. A lot of the, biggest companies in the world are embracing blockchain, and they're really, supportive in these efforts to support farmers. And they're going to need to do so because you know what? It's going to be traceable. It's not going to look really good if they're now, not supporting farmers and giving them an equal share of the revenue from their harvest. So I think, what you're going to see now in the future is everybody, when you go on the packaging of products, you're going to be able to scan that barcode and you're going to be able to see the whole supply chain, and it'll be on the blockchain so that people can really know for a fact that this data is real.
Absolutely. And great points. And Adrian or Noble, so I want to come to you on that. Noble, anything additional to add onto Wendy and Irfan's points around agriculture and just those types of areas of opportunity we're looking at here for the next year?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking, agriculture also includes both cannabis and hemp. And those are huge crop economies right now in the U.S. and are developing in a fast and quick way. We also have relationships in both Argentina and some other places where these are things are starting to develop. And people really do want to know where their CBD is sourced, understand the supply chain. And one of the significant things is, how do you tax it? And so now it's become integral that from a tracking standpoint, and this is why I always try and separate the currency side of the blockchain from the functional side, because there's different things that functioning wise, like to Wendy's point, is that are just necessary for us to understand. And the reality is blockchain is a double-blind accounting system. Once it's set up and it's done right, then the information is there forever. And so now we'll understand the supply chain. We'll understand where our products are grown and who's growing it and whether or not the quality is the right quality. And this is becoming a big underground development throughout the cannabis and hemp space. And I think overall, this is just, there's so many insidious ways in a positive way that blockchain just changes how people interact with their goods and services when it comes to food and agriculture. The reality is people really want to know if their food is organic, if it is been done properly, if it has not been messed with along the supply chain. And people also want to know what animals are ill. The agriculture side also takes into account livestock. And being a commodities trader for 20 plus years, livestock and understanding who was sick, who was not sick, being able to track them. This whole thing becomes a automatic process that, like we're talking about it now as an anomaly, it just becomes built in. And I think that's really the exciting part for agriculture.
Thank you, Noble. Adrian, anything to add, and then just your closing thoughts as to where the industry is going to go for around, again, transformative markets, prediction for the year, and of course, where can everyone find you to continue the conversation?
I can give two examples I'm seeing in Eastern Europe. Cheese and honey, they are made from chemicals, and in many occasions you can't figure out as a consumer if the ingredients are the real ones or not. And by using blockchain and other technologies to trace all the ingredients, all the processes, this will help us actually to eat more healthy. And especially if we want to feed our children, we need to make sure that what we give them is what's written on the box. And unfortunately, with the classical systems, you can verify. I can be found on LinkedIn. That one is my main communication hub until something else will be invented. We need a clubhouse for LinkedIn or for B2B communication.
Soon enough, my friend.
Yeah. Let's build one. Why not?
There you go.
Thank you very much for having me here. I can't wait to come back in future shows.
Thank you very much, Adrian. And I want to switch over to Irfan, closing thoughts, and where can you be found online as well to continue the conversation?
Great. No, thanks, Kyle, and thanks to the panelists for an exciting discussion and for the audience to tune in. You can reach me through both Twitter at Semper Irfan and LinkedIn as Sheikh Mohammed Irfan. Just as a closing thought, and I think, this is what we were discussing, that, this year we're going to see a host of activities, specifically utilizing blockchain in the transformative markets. In fact, some of these projects, as Wendy mentioned, has already been in place. We have had some trial and error run, and blockchain has been used for some time in those economies. But what we're going to see is that we're going to see some potential successful use cases come out from these areas. And some of them have already met a lot of these internal benchmarks that are required. So we're going to see a host of activity. But also at the same time, I think, and something to mention is that, CBDCs is something that we're going to see predominantly play a big part of some of these economies when it comes to a situation related to blockchain. And of course, the decisions that would be made by some of the developed countries, and specifically here in the US, will act as a precedence for some of the decisions in these countries. As you may understand, a lot of the governments over there, still look up to the global leaders to make some of the landmark movement in this particular area. But I see that happening very soon, and 2021 is going to be an exciting time. Back to you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Irfan. Noble, quick closing thoughts, and where can everyone find you online to continue the conversation?
It's easy to find me, Noble Dracone, on LinkedIn. That's typical. You can reach me on Twitter too, @Dracone, which is my last name. And just closing thoughts, this is a space to be in. There's no, everyone's already blockchain 1.0 when Bitcoin was super inexpensive. Now there's, hundreds and hundreds of different altcoins and DLTs that are out there. So now's the time to do your research and take a deep dive, not just chase what you see in the news, but really understand how the DLT is changing the industries they're in, and then kind of pick a lane, pick an industry that you feel comfortable with. And I think that's how you succeed in this space.
Thank you very much, Noble. Wendy, close us out. Quick closing thoughts. Where can everyone find you online to continue the conversation?
My closing thoughts are, we can never give up our inner child, and we should all be millennial thinking, right? When you hear about the statistics of millennials, they want to know what they're eating and everything and tracing. And so I think anybody in this space, I want to know about it. Anybody working in, the vegan, vegetarian food space, anybody in agriculture, anybody making a positive impact to enable everyone in the world financial access. I am interested in this. And I think that we all should be aware of the fact that, what we want, what we eat is, who we are, and that we should all want, transparency. We all want to know traceable. Where is this food coming from? What are you using pesticides? Because I don't want it, And so anyone can find me at wendydiamond.com. All my links are there, and you can email me there or whatever. And happy to speak to anybody.
Wonderful. Wendy, Adrian, Noble, Irfan, thank you all very much for sharing your thoughts and insights again today around blockchain, particularly around transformative economies and markets as well. A lot more to be had, and we're going to continue the discussion here on VCTV. But again, thank you all. And to our audience, thank you so much for tuning in. If you're liking what you heard today, do reach out to the team and I, not only to share, but also to check out the archive and hear from all of our speakers, along with the entire VCTV family of speakers that we bring together from around the world to share with you their thoughts and insights and on-the-ground perspective around different technologies, industries, and regions around the world. And again, if you'd like to be on a show like today as an investor, like those that spoke today, Wendy, Irfan, Noble, and Adrian, or as an entrepreneur to share your company or product or service with us, again, reach out to the team and or myself. We'll find that right spot for you. Speaking of the team, a big thank you to the LATOKEN team and to Maria for making VCTV possible. every single day and bringing us all together. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. You can find me everywhere online at Kyle Ellicott, along with on all social media platforms, like each and every one of our guests today. Do reach out, add context, and we'll see you back here with more tomorrow on VCTV. Take care, everybody. Have a great day and a great week. Bye.